In our world, we are being presented with many problems. Albert Einstein gave great advice in this matter when he said problems cannot be solved by the level of knowledge or awareness that created them. In other words, we have to get outside our own boxes. Well, a mystic sees beyond a box to what has been hidden or what has been forgotten, what is not seen. My name is Sharon Raji Maynard. It was curiosity that took me on a radical search for answers. And those answers came to me from ancient ones, those in spiritual worlds, unseen to the eye. And this knowledge foundations my podcast, A Mystic's View. Come as you are to see situations through my eyes as we sit together. Diversity, uniqueness, is a natural condition, a natural outcome within humanity, and hearing diverse ideas and thoughts expands our own capacities. So I encourage you to listen to A Mystic's View, to hear, to be enhanced, and to consider other possibilities. I welcome you to this journey. Before I begin this podcast, I want to give big shout outs to my Patreon community. It is that community that has encouraged me and whose support makes it possible for me to expand. Big shout outs to Andrea, Audrey, Carol, Cinda, Deborah, Janelle, Emma, Janet, Jennifer, lots of J's, Lynn, Cheyenne, and Susan. Thank you so much. It's been a fun adventure so far, and we're just beginning. We have some very exciting online gatherings planned for the rest of the year for this community of supporters. And so I'd love to have you join us. Go on over to my Patreon page, and you'll see how you can be involved. The last 3 Mystic View podcasts took you on a journey that was the foundation of where I am today, through the twists and the turns of the years from 1970 to 2019. And there have been twists and turns and ups and downs. The one solid, constant light that eased the way was the relationship that opened for me in that unseen world that many call spirit. In many ways, over the years, I have shared what I was being taught, which focused on why you're in pain and how to move beyond and out of it. What many call healing. And along the way, I was first called to heal myself. And the second time, and the third time, and so on, an endless journey of self-healing. So I want to stop here for a moment to describe the word heal. I don't know what it conjures up for you. Cancer, stroke, broken leg, injured back, chronic pain, car accident. The common thread in all of those is pain, physical. When I started on what would be my healing journey, I was a widow with 9 young children in a new city, living on survivor benefits and home-based business creations. Have you ever tried to ask friends to add your 8 or 9 children to their family while you take a 4-day business trip? 9 children from age 4 months to 13 years old? Or in 1975, to care for them while you do a 30 to 40 hour week? No daycare back then. So I didn't have cancer or stroke or broken leg, thank goodness. I had a very different kind of pain, anxiety and worry, because my money did not stretch to cover the financial needs of my family. And so, is healing the correct word? For me here in 2019, the answer is yes. Back in 1984, I may not have used healing. I may have used the word help. I needed help because I struggled to keep my finances balanced or semi-balanced. You know, the old model of you rob Peter to pay Paul? Did you notice that I just inserted a new year into the conversation? 1984. You remember in the last episode, I had just done my nice Mormon woman anger by saying to Apostle Bruce R. McConkie, "You are wrong. Teach them. Teach them." A side note. At this moment of time in 2019, as I am sitting in my housecoat, again, with my feet upon the hassock, again, a light bulb just went off. I hadn't thought that this idea would be a part of this podcast, but she shows up, hands on her hips, and says, "See me, share me." So, over my years, I have come to conclude that whatever I point my finger at, usually in judgment, labeling, like I did in 1982 at an apostle, comes back. I find myself in the same situation. As I sit here in 2019, I have to ask myself, have you been diligent in teaching the concepts, principles, and laws about personal guidance from spiritual beings? My truthful answer would have to be yes and no. I lived it in my life, shared what I learned about life, purpose, pain, and personal choice. I wrote books, mentored, and did I specifically and consistently teach the incredible value of cultivating secured channels to the divine? Not up until now. My Angelos quote pops in. I want to be shared. So here it is. Do the best you can. Then when you know better, do better. And healing is a process by which you know better and you do what it takes to reframe your own inner ideas in order to do better. Back in 1984, I finally admitted to myself that I needed help with my financial picture. You'll remember that 1970 was the year when, without any major fanfare, an idea floated into my world unbidden as far as I could tell. Today, I would probably use the words grace or mystery or magic. The idea landed through my husband, and the idea made a crack in the box through which I had viewed the world. It made such a difference that when I became a widow in 1975, what had been a possibility had grown to become a solid foundation that held me as I walked through territory that required decisions and actions for my family. The idea had proven so valuable that in 1982, in the face of a major authority in my life, I was clear when I said, "You are wrong. Teach." The crack had widened and spread until new light was informing my view of life. Now jump to 1984. You'd find me in Boise, Idaho. I now 9 children and one feisty banty rooster named Killer. Boise is where the guidance of Sananda had taken me. Despite the warning of the male members of my family that we would fall off the edge of the earth if we went that far away, I had packed all of our belongings into 2 trucks and 1 car to caravan to this new city. And it was in Boise, Idaho, 1 year later that I finally acknowledged struggling with finances was no longer fun. The challenge was no longer what I wanted. And the grace or mystery or magic of life turned my head to see a possibility. It was a radio ad. Although I was later told that there had been no radio ads run, it was for a day workshop on being financially savvy. Sign me up. And so a week later, I am walking the 3 blocks from my home to a small, light green church building to learn how to be financially savvy. The cracks. Yes, there were now cracks. The cracks in my boxed world had not opened enough that I was confident in this choice. I had never taken a community class taught within a church building other than a Mormon chapel. I kid you not. So I wavered as I put my hand on the door, opened it, and walked inside. No lightning strike. Good. What happened that day really accelerated the cracking. One exercise was to take a blank sheet of paper. On one side, I was to write what financial prosperity looked like for me. Oh, easy. My bills and my rent would be paid on time. My kids could have clothes when they needed them. And food, that would be no problem. On the other side was to write, why is it that I don't have that experience? Oh, that was easy too. And I wrote it down. Finished, I waited for the next instruction. Now, as a Mormon, especially as a Mormon woman, I was really excellent at following instructions. So next, we could share into the larger group if we wanted to. So when they ask, who would like to share why you don't have financial prosperity? My hand shot up. Well, a gentle hand shoot up. I was called upon, and I said, because God, translate, Heavenly Father, has not said it was time for me to have more money. And before I could sit my satisfied self down, there was a loud laugh, and then mumbled words like, what God are you talking about? I wasn't offended or even embarrassed at these slaps on my face of logic. I was stunned. At my regular church building down the road a piece, I would have heard, you are so strong, Sister Maynard. I really admire your persistence, Sister Maynard, or words to that effect, because God gives permission for experiences, and it is my responsibility to obey, suffer well, and not complain. As you may have guessed, this small green church, yes, it was a church of religious science. The major concept there said, when you change your mind, your life changes. Of course, the reaction within that group could only be laughter at the absurdity that God told me what to do, and through men. I had no other recourse than to shut my mouth and obey, do what I was given to do. And so I learned about affirmations, process by which I participated in choosing my experiences, working with an intelligence field that did not look like my God. Would it work? Remember, I have told you I am curious, and so I left, determined to try this idea. As I walked out of the building with the male teacher, he turned to go one way to his home, and I turned to go the other. I was excited at something new. I had no grasp of all that had been shared. I just knew that there was something important here. I turned and waved again. Goodbye, Michael, and thanks, I said. He smiled and responded. I had walked about a block with this grinning Cheshire cat face when it hit me. His name was Richard. It was not Michael. Embarrassed for just a second. And then I heard Sananda chuckle. I have probably not told you, but he does that a lot. Chuckle, I mean. Don't worry. That's what you knew him as in another lifetime. Oh, I thought and relaxed, and then I stopped and stared. What do you mean? Another lifetime? Cracks and more cracks. And always Sananda was there. Healing is changing. It is reframing your view of yourself and of others. It's reframing your view of life. It's changing what we call consciousness, what it is we see and are aware of. Often the change shows up and you stop in your tracks and say, what? Sometimes you sit in a class loving how it feels, words tickling at your mind, senses telling you there's something important here. And you would have to say, I don't know what the heck these words mean, but they are important somehow. We live forward. In the next 2 episodes of Mystic's View, I will share my journey from what God do you mean to I get it. I'm jumping off that cliff. Hopefully I can fly. Thanks for coming along on this episode. These various sharings may stretch your mind, challenge your dogma, awaken new possibilities, or even resonate with your own experiences. I'd love to hear any of that. And you can find me on Facebook under A Mystic's View, and the same YouTube, A Mystic's View. When you see the value of this podcast, please share it with your friends. A Mystic's View is also on Patreon, where those who want to support and be a part of this growing community can participate. That would be at www.patreon.com/A Mystic's View. The pressures of this world is rising, and what does that mean? How can you respond? My intention is that through this podcast, you will gain more insight, encouragement to discover yourself. Until next time, blessings.